The Honourable Damien O'Connor, 5 minutes.
There's an old saying, follow the money. And so too with this piece of legislation. Mr Speaker, this country was built on capital from England coming into this country. And we've been told for many, many years that we've been very poor savers. And so that terrible Tory, Robert Muldoon, destroyed what was a Labour Party initiative through the good work of Kirk and Rowling, Mr Speaker, to build up a superannuation scheme and savings that would have given our country proper savings and proper investment funds, Mr Speaker. The terrible Tory Muldoon destroyed that, Mr Speaker, and so too does this Tory government intend to destroy a savings scheme we had. Michael Cullen brought in KiwiSaver, Mr Speaker, Kiwi Bank and the Superannuation Fund to offer us security in superannuation and to encourage savings that would have given this country real investment capital. And indeed that has occurred. But what we've got now is a Tory government intent on destroying that savings ethic. It's not the $1,000 that's given real effect here, Mr Speaker, to the cuts. It's the disincentive to the hundreds of thousands of Kiwis out there who wanted to get into KiwiSaver, Mr Speaker. And this will destroy that incentive. Why, Mr Speaker? Well, follow the money. Because if we have, as we do now, a building capital fund to invest in our own future, to take ownership of our own assets, Mr Speaker, we can control our own destiny. But I'll tell you what, if you're a Tory, a money trader or a traitor, you don't want that. You do not want that. So what we've got is we've got Jenny Shipley, Chris Tremaine, Don Brash in charge now of Chinese banks that are coming into this country with trillions of dollars available to invest in New Zealand. KiwiSaver, the super fund, Kiwi Bank, are the only fair, honest New Zealand players to counter that investment. And so what this bunch of terrible Tories is doing, Mr Speaker, is exactly the same as Robert Muldoon did, undermining the ability of New Zealanders to invest in our future through a building capital fund that has real wealth and real capability, Mr Speaker. I think it's an absolute outrage that they are taking from New Zealanders, from young New Zealanders, the incentive to invest in the future. Not just in their own personal accounts, but in the building of a capital fund that can invest in the value-added investment we need. We've got, in fact, Ruth Richardson in the ANZ Bank trotting around the country at the moment saying two things. Firstly, the cooperatives are no good, so get rid of Fonterra. The second thing they're saying is that we need billions of dollars to grow this economy into the future. And who's going to provide that? Oh, your mates, Jenny Shipley through her China bank. Your mate, Chris Tremaine, through a Chinese bank. And Don Brash as well, because the Tory government in power now wants to undermine the growing focus on savings and investment from within this country, Mr Speaker. I think it's an outrage, and I think this is a treacherous act that might seem on the face of it just fiscal responsibility. As the bill says, quite honestly, this will achieve significant fiscal savings, Mr Speaker. But then it goes on to say a ridiculous statement that cutting back this $1,000 will therefore improve the value for money of this KiwiSaver scheme. Mr Speaker, this is about undermining the objectives of the KiwiSaver scheme. It's about undermining the savings effort of a country that has just started to realise the value in that. And the Tory mates in here and the ones out there are conspiring to ensure that we are fed a diet of foreign investment and capital rather than that built up by our own people for our own future, Mr Speaker. This is an outrageous piece of legislation, and I'm sure Nick Smith's going to get up on his hind legs and say what a wonderful, justify what Jenny Shipley's doing, justify how you can take $1,000 incentive away from the young New Zealanders who want to own their own future, Mr Speaker.
Mr Speaker.
The Honourable Nick Smith.
Mr Speaker, that was a